Hey, this is Sacred Frames. Jeff Cook, Sean Palmer, and the Movie Mike Yager. We're talking about, what's the name of this movie and the director, right?
One battle after another, Paul Thomas Anderson. So, actually...
One cliche after another by
right.
Paul Thomas
This is
Anderson.
how we're starting, Sean? Really? Okay. So, first of all, can I offer just it's not a mea culpa, it's a wea-culpa, but like we promised y'all sinners, that's coming. We're going to do our horror check-in a little later into spooky season, but we have, this film that is very much of the moment, and it is a rich text. So with a lot of opinions, and so we're going to get into it. This is going to be a fun one.
There's going to be so many opinions. I just got out of the movie, and I'm ready to go on this.
I got some hot takes.
I'm ready for hot takes on this. Mine's going to be fairly negative, unfortunately. So I'm staying in the same zone as I was last week. You want to give the summary, Mike?
Sure. Where do I start? Okay, so adapted from, loosely, I think, adapted from the 1990 novel Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. One battle after another tells the story of a group of revolutionaries, the French 75, led in part by Pería Beverly Hills, played by Tiana Taylor, and who we come to know as Bob Ferguson. He has a few other names, Ghetto Pat, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. And so they are crusading against the onset of some totalitarian, authoritarian overreach that certainly mirrors some of what we may be witnessing in our society current states, and they are causing a lot of trouble, particularly for one Stephen J. Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn, a colonel in the army who is hot in pursuit of both Bob and Pería for very different reasons, and that's kind of where how do we want to say through the rest of the plot? Because this is kind of broken up in three, I would say, distinct acts. So there is a break of time at which we catch up with Bob and his daughter, Willa. Stephen J. Lockjaw still a antagonist. And we know that they are coming for the members of the remaining members of the French 75. And let's take it from there, really. I think that's kind of enough to get us started, yeah?
Yeah, so I feel like this needs to be, for us to really do this movie justice in terms of our conversation, it almost has to be a spoiler movie, like we're going to be talking spoilers. So if you haven't seen One Battle After Another, pause here, yes. Go buy a ticket, go see this movie, and then come back, because this is a movie that really has to be seen in order to be discussed. And I think one of the ways that we know that is because you could watch trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer and not really know what this film's about. And what it's counting on is you seeing Leonardo DiCaprio in a trailer. It's counting on some of us knowing who Paul Thomas Anderson, who directs this movie, is counting on maybe older, like knowing who Sean Penn is and saying, oh, that looks interesting, because it's not selling the plot. It's not like a Mission Impossible movie where it's like, okay, Tom Cruise is going to go off and save the world, where it's self-explanatory, or like an old movie like A Few Good Men, where, like A Few Good Men is a kind of movie in the first 10 minutes, everything that you need to know about this movie is revealed. It's a slow reveal. And so folks who are out there wondering whether or not, hey, am I going to go and spend 2 hours and 42 minutes with this? You're kind of buying in. You're pushing your chips in without really knowing what it is. So I just want to give people a chance to go and see it. And I do have serious issues with this film, but I do think it's worth being seen. And it's worth being seen in the theater, if for no other reason than the third act.
Yeah.
So is that fair?
The filmmaking is on a very virtuosic scale. The performances are tremendous. So thematically, it is a very naughty film in some ways that are going to be provocative, but that's part of reckoning with good art, or bad art for that matter. I mean, this is going to be a movie that continues to be in the conversation through the remainder of the year and into the award season next year. We won't necessarily get into a ton of that, but this film is not going away anytime soon, and so
it will be a Oscar darling.
I agree with all that. I would love to start out with the reactions because I would love to set the table with something that I'm hoping I can get past. But it feels to me going into this, the filmmaker is showing you the problem, but he's not unveiling anything that we don't know. We know this is the problem. So if this movie is trying to expose anything, it doesn't need to be exposed because a lot of us are already there, especially his audience. So what I, as a film goer, was looking for is, what is your solution? And you gave me nothing. You gave me zero in this movie to chew on. I know what the problem is, and I know what a preferred future looks like. You gave me nothing in terms of actual action steps or wisdom to embrace or any hope to internalize. I've found this a fairly meaningless exercise because I have seen movies with this plot, this target, this goal in the past already. Yeah. And as was said, beautiful. The acting is superb, and you're not giving me anything. And so that would be...
It's definitely one of those movies where everything in it is great, right? Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating is Paul Thomas Anderson, and for those who are unfamiliar with his work, we're talking about Boogie Nights, The Master, Punch Drunk Love,
Phantom
Thread. He is an auteur. He is considered one of the living greats. He has never made any money. Like, his films never make any money, but he is considered an artistic great. And I think that's one of the issues around this film is this is a piece of art that I think actually asks us about art and whether art should answer questions, whether it should have a response to the world, or whether it exists just to hold a light or a mirror. So he's been working on this film for over 20 years. And so it's very easy. I know some folks out there will call it woke and liberal. And so, but think about this, like, he has been working on this, trying to get this to theaters in different avenues for over 20 years. So it starts off Tatiana Taylor's character, Pería, liberating an immigration camp. That's when we meet Sean Penn. The whole thing is like hypersexualized and all of that. But this is a story that he wanted to tell 20 years ago. And I don't know that we would have believed it 20 years ago. And so it's kind of one of those things where it is asking the questions, but I want to take seriously the fact that it didn't fall out of the sky 2 or 3 years ago. And Paul Thomas Anderson and others said, like, oh, let's push this to screen really quickly just to take advantage of where a certain segment of the American people are on these issues.
And I think that, to that point, Sean, there are these moments of artistic serendipity where a piece of art will meet a moment where it seems to be keenly attentive, though, planned, months, years in advance. Like this, whether or not this is the movie of the year, the decade, that's really ultimately irrelevant to me because, like, ranking, these things against one another is kind of fundamentally stupid. But it is very much the movie of right now. Like, we've got this real life Christmas Adventurers Club, running the show. And so, to respond to you there, Jeff, like, I don't think that there's any responsibility of the film or the filmmaker to come out with a didactic, this is the way forward. I think what he's saying is there may not be a way forward, but we are. I think what is most fascinating to me, what I'm really continuing to hold on to, and what I feel is ultimately the most hopeful thread in the film is that this is a film about how the revolution is always renewed generationally, that they pick up the charge, to whatever degree the revolution of the past generation has been successful, or in this case has seemed to make things profoundly worse for a lot of people involved.
There is a sense of renewal, right? Of especially toward the end. I'm assuming everyone's seen the movie now because they paused when I asked them to a little bit ago. As Chase Infinity's character kind of goes off into a new version of the revolution. But there also kind of like is a hopelessness, though, isn't there? In that they have tried revolution. And it's
a certain form of revolution.
Right. And like it seems to always be there. So you get the Christmas adventurers, which I have so much trouble with. So much trouble with. I mean, so people have talked about how this movie is funnier than they thought it would be. And I think Christmas Adventurers trivializes the reality of racist powers. Like all hail Saint Nick. Like they're wanting us to laugh at it, but white supremacy is not a laughing matter. And that's like one of the issues that I had with this film. Like you're wanting us to treat these characters as caricatures and like to not take them seriously. When one of the main characters that comes in this late second act, third act, visits the powers of the Christmas Adventurers. He goes into this house and then down this elevator and then into this expansive, like this thing underground could not exist in this house. Like everything about it is ridiculous, is silly. And I want to say like racism isn't silly. Like this isn't something to be laugh at. This isn't something to be joked about. And every time we come in contact with the Christmas Adventurers, even from the walk of Sean Penn's Lockjaw, we're laughing at it. And that's actually not the way that satire works. Like satire should leave us thinking, oh, we have been laughing at the thing that is really serious. Not that we are going to take the thing that's really serious and then laugh at it. And that's like how it's perpetuated. Like we've all been in a situation when someone has made a racist comment and they go, oh, I was just joking. Like that's how PTA wants us to treat the Christmas Adventurers in this film.
I disagree. And, I feel like the way they are depicted, I think is kind of beyond caricature, because it is laying bare that this is how these people are in real life, in those private corridors, in those rooms where these power brokers gather to lord over the rest of the populace. I think there's the comedy is in how true it feels to what we are seeing day on day, and that it is at the same time, or at least I found it very chilling. The satire for me was closer to a Dr. Strangelove, where it is a heightening, but it is also I think it is like laying bare the motivations, the characterizations. Ultimately, these guys are a bunch of dorks, sitting around in this room.
But they are the only people in the entire film who don't suffer. Mm-hmm.
I would say, like real life. I mean, that's where where the satire is coming. And so their caricature is a cocoon for them to keep existing. And like I think they are like what they want for the world from the Christmas Adventurers and all their all hail Saint Nick, which is just absolutely laughably ridiculous and I found offensive. Like what they expect of Lockjaw, I think it trivializes their reality. And that was my fundamental problem with the film, is because for some people in this country, whether they are cartoonish in reality in their own interactions, their existence is not trivial. I totally agree with that. But these are the guys saying that they're going to set out and find the dangerous lunatics, the haters, the punk trash, and stop them, when these people are themselves lunatics, clearly.
Yeah, but they are the lunatics that persist, right? Yes. And so they have no negative consequence in the movie at all, except for the henchmen that they unleash, which is one way to say that is like, well, yeah, this is how it works. These are the power brokers of the world, and this is how they survive. This is how they exist. But everyone in the film pays a great price, particularly black women, which we can talk about later because I have a whole lot of thoughts about that, except for them. And so is it, Jeff says, hey, like it gave me nothing to do. And I understand that and get that. And maybe PTA is saying, I'm just trying to show you who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if that's it, like I can accept that, but I found it unsatisfying or I wanted something different. And it's okay for me to want something different than he set out to do. And that's what makes art, right? So I'm okay with it. It's just, that's my quibble.
Speaking of, some of these primary gripes, Sean, I think it's probably behooves us to rewind a bit. We've got this figure that looms over the proceedings unseen for quite a while. But where we start out in this Act 1, which is fundamentally a prologue for where the main action takes place. Let's get into that. Let's talk about Perfidia and her relationship to Bob, to Lockjaw, because there's a whole lot here, and I know we're on the clock.
All right, so we meet Perfidia, who is the driver of the action in the first act, and she is a revolutionary. And she meets who we call most of the movie Bob, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. They have a love affair, mostly driven in the film, from what we can see, by her love of violence and revolution. So she is portrayed as particularly aroused whenever they commit these violent revolutionary acts. The first act is freeing a group from an immigrant detention center where we encounter Sean Penn. Perfidia, played by Tiana Taylor, meets Bob. She asks him for a sexual response to being held at gunpoint. He does it. We find out later that he is particularly aroused by black women. Through a course of events, they end up engaging in intercourse together, but she's also in a relationship with Leonardo DiCaprio's Bob, and later gets pregnant. And she gives birth to Chase Infinity's character later in the movie, and then has to, for her own reasons, and very much her own reasons, leave the revolutionary group, the French 75, because, as she says in the movie, like, she's always been about her and herself. And whether that is postpartum depression, whether that is just rank selfishness, she has to move on. She ends up being caught by Sean Penn's Lockjaw and basically turns in her counterpart revolutionaries. Bob takes his daughter and kind of goes into hiding. And then then Perfidia, who is in witness protection, eventually evades that system, and that's the last that we see of her for the movie. But she is the character who sets the action into motion. Mm-hmm. Is that a good enough backdrop?
Yeah, I think it's the one detail I would add there is that the sexual relationship with Lockjaw that follows her being caught in the middle of one of the operations of the French 75, and so she is ultimately extorted into this sexual arrangement with Lockjaw that continues on into her time in witness protection as well. So there is a complexity there that I want to get back to, because there is certainly an intense dehumanization, but there's also this weird, power dynamic at work, especially with her and Lockjaw, because she does get off, in a sense, on the power. And Lockjaw is, he comes up to Bob in the middle of the store, and he says, I love black women. I love black women. But he is in this self-loathing spiral about it, just at the same time that this is happening. He has this desire to be dominated, and there's a messiness, a complexity that I think is important to name. But I want to give you the floor, Sean, because there's a lot to be said.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jeff, you the one who's seen it most recently. It's been over a week since I saw it. I've given a lot of reflection to it, but it's fresh on your mind in a way that's not in mine. Like, what's your take?
Lockjaw character is apparently poisoned. Has a love for black women, doesn't know how to express it. There's a line halfway through the movie where he says to his daughter, "I had a higher calling than having you." And that was a total lie. He had his calling was to find something inside of himself, to love black women in their future, which I found to be central to what the movie wanted to say, was that the future belongs to a multicultural collective that is characterized by something like more female power, and that the white men in this movie are either weak or poisoned or very violent, and that was, and they're unable to get their minds around and their hearts around what a future might look like that they were actually made for. They do have a higher calling, and they need to figure out how to get there. And I don't think the filmmaker shows us any way to do that in anything other than, get out of the way and smoke some weed. Let them go fight for themselves. I think.
Get out of the way and smoke some weed. Yeah.
Am I right in saying that that's what if there is an end or a goal or meaning? And by the way, this may be a meaningless film. So like, you may just be saying, I'm just putting a mirror up.
Yeah.
Look and see what you want.
And isn't that what Paul Thomas Anderson does though?
Yeah. And that is right. And
I think maybe one of the places where I'm struggling is he wants to show these intimate, intricate interactions between humans. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you get that in Phantom Thread, you get that in Punch Drunk Love. You get a more global scale in things like There Will Be Blood. And I may want him to say something that he's not wanting to say. Like, there is a level that we'll all understand where this is a father rescuing his daughter. And I think it's profound what it says about family insofar as it's a father rescuing a girl who actually is not his daughter.
Isn't it the case? Can I build on that real quick?
Yeah.
He never rescues her. She rescues herself,
rescues him. Yeah.
Which I think is the whole point of the last line of the movie. Which, by the way, the last line of the movie is something like, be careful. And she says, I won't. Because she's going to go, as was said, the revolution is always being renewed generationally.
Yeah.
But if she keeps doing the same form of revolution, she's going to fail and cause more grief in the future, because that was shown to be a failed revolutionary strategy. And that's what I hated about the movie. You're giving me nothing. You're giving me nothing that has any beauty, any power, any meaning. You're not inviting white men to be part of the revolution in any worthwhile way. These are things that stick out to me.
I want to stop there. When you said you're not inviting white men to be part of the revolution, I know Mike will disagree with this, and then we'll let Mike have his diatribe here in a minute. And it's fair, because I want to say this: every person of color serves the interests of a white man in this movie, from Pería to the nuns, to Benicio del Toro's character. They're all helping out Leonardo DiCaprio. They're all serving the white guy in the movie.
He's not worthy of it.
And he's in a robe the whole time, which drove me freaking crazy. At what
serving
point
the dude
do you just take off the robe? At least take off the robe. I don't care that you have spent the last 20 years drinking and smoking weed till your brain is fried, that you can't remember the password, that you've forgotten everything that you believed in. This is how much this movie bothered me. That my dog is concerned that I'm this animated and has hopped up in my lap to check on me, to make sure that I am okay. She's
it's
are
gonna
you
be okay?
Are you okay?
Well, I think this is correct, by the way. The people of color are serving the interests of this clear loser. Like, this is, again, failed strategy. All of these are failed strategies. Yeah. So and that actually is a mirror towards America. We have very few who are standing forth, who are actually saying things that are worthwhile and saying, this is how it's done. Let's all band together and get it done. In the face of, on one side, the Christmas tree folks, but the real threat, and I think Sean said it, is the henchmen that are unleashed are real, and they have motive, and they are driven. And the tactics that were used in Iraq that have come stateside should be terrifying to a lot of us who care about our country having a humanity and a constitutional commitment. And that actually, I thought, came out really nice in the movie. Okay, now I'm done.
Yeah. So I don't know what I was railing about before.
Leo running around in a robe, I think, was getting you all hot and bothered.
Yeah. Yeah, the robe bothered me more than any piece of wardrobe I have ever seen in a film.
So can I jump in here real quick? So Bob is not, I mean, to your point, Jeff, Bob is not the hero of this movie. He begins as a revolutionary tourist, by and large. He's primarily like effective with fireworks. And he spends most of the film, truly most of the film, as a passenger. Like, there is very little that happens in Act 2 and 3 of this movie that would be meaningfully different if he had just stayed home. Like, the only thing he really does is leave the house when he knows that Lockjaw is on the way. And I think that is actually really important. Like, Sergio gives him a way out. He follows the boys across the roof, and he immediately, falls off the building, gets arrested. Sergio, works with the Sensei Sergio, respectfully, works with the hospital staff to get him out again. And then he gets to Lockjaw late. Willa saves herself. To your point, like, this is not an effective person. But I think that's entirely what PTA is ultimately saying in this. He's looking at and I'm looking at, like, I'm a cusper, but like, we got a couple of Gen X guys here, right? And he is looking at a world that he is handing over to his biracial daughters and wondering, oh, did I fail? Did I do enough? Did I do anything of note for that matter? Like, I find this to be an incredibly personal film from him as a writer and director that speaks very much to, not to oversell it, but, where he is in his family and in his limited perspective as a, white man reflecting on his state of things. I think it's really important that, and not important, but it is, I think it's revealing that you have these two characters, played by DiCaprio and played by Sean Penn, who are these two actors that we have a built-in relationship with, and we see them as much as Bob and Lockjaw, we see them as Jack Dawson, Romeo. We see them as Jeff Spicoli. And in these two cases, one of these men, Bob, has gained a paternal softness in his eyes. And you look at Lockjaw, and all you have is this cold remove. And it's the emptiness of this pursuit. He wants the corner office and the Christmas Adventurers Club to what end? And none of these people, and I would say even Perfidia, for that matter, to get back, what do they actually want? Because she says she wants to be a revolutionary, and she says she wants, free borders, free choices, free bodies, free from fear. But also she has assumed a surname, Beverly Hills, that is about claiming this crucible of white power, of riches and excess, this stronghold of fame. And I think in that it's, what PTA is getting at. And ultimately, I think what makes it effective, more effective than I think y'all are necessarily giving it credit for, is that these characters aren't one thing. Just like we're not one thing. And I think meeting them on those complex terms is really the only way to, to your point, Jeff, of how we work through this is recognizing that all of us have the limitations of perspective, and we have the lenses of culture and generational trauma, and all of these things that are in the mix, and are that each of us lack the capacity, or even oftentimes the desire to really reckon with and to broaden our own perspectives.
You get that, John?
Well, I mean, I'm not terribly shocked to hear an Enneagram 4 say that everything is complex. I can appreciate that.
Or a 1 wants some moral action steps.
Yeah. So here's my problem with the movie, and I do think it's a good movie, and it's gonna rake in come award season, is that all of the characters besides DiCaprio's Bob Ferguson are so thinly drawn. And I think that's a disservice, especially when you're trying to say something about revolution or white supremacy, when you're trying to create a piece of art where a black woman drives the narrative of the film. And I just recently wrote about this on my Substack. For her to be so one-dimensional, like she is a violent revolutionary who is sexually aroused by the violence, and that's all you really need to know. She's super selfish. And what is often true is, and you see this later in the film with Regina Hall's Deandra, where it's actually the black women who have to pay the price for everything that's going on. Like, she shows up and she saves Chase Infinity, right? And she is the one who is carted away at the end. She pays the price. And so what you get is Leonardo DiCaprio running around for 2 hours trying to save his half-white daughter, and we're supposed to care about that. And at the same time, Benicio del Toro, last time we see him, he's got his hands wrapped around the back of his head, being questioned by the police. Everyone suffers except the white guy, and then we're supposed to go, oh, it was a good outcome. And that is Paul Thomas Anderson's enormously huge.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is the critique. This is where the fundamental critique of both white men, and I would say, like, to your, I think you wrote really well on your Substack on this, Sean, as well. Like, it is a critique of this, mythical, the liberal progressivist, inactivity ultimately. You've got these, French 75ers that are on the line with Bob, and they won't give him the rendezvous point because he doesn't know the code, because he's fried from these years of smoking pot and being out of the mix of things. But he it's the guy Comrade Josh, he says these are noise triggers, right? it's the Willa's non-binary friend who ultimately rats out her location. What he's saying is that the progressivism is not revolutionary in and of itself. You don't get credit for having the quote unquote right views on things, and that's why he can't dial in to the revolution the same way Perfidia has, or her forebearers have, or Deandra, Regina Hall, who I think is somewhat underserved, but as she always does, brings a tremendous amount to that part. I really want to get to Sensei Sergio, who is my favorite character in the film and my favorite performance in the film. I think Benicio del Toro is tremendous, because what Bob happens into is, this Latino sensei who's got a little Harriet Tubman situation going on at his house, he says, but he is active in this revolution, and he's doing so from a place of love, from a place of community that is so, like, you can tell that as the Battle of Bactan Cross is happening, which is just a a crackerjack like action 40-minute sequence kind of in the heart of the film. But this is, you are getting Bob fly on the wall to what this actual revolution looks like in its lived experience day to day. And, you know, even by the end, I think the critique goes all the way through, because what is his big win? You know, they've been off the grid and, you know, no cell phones and all this stuff, you know, for these years and years of being in hiding. And his big win is he gets to kick back on the couch and play with his new iPhone as his daughter goes out to take up her role in what comes next. And that's not PTA, you know, affirming these choices or these people. He is very much, you know, like has been said, he's holding up a mirror. This is how it is. And yes, the ones that are paying the cost are generally not the white men, be they, the layabout stoners, or the opposite extreme.
Those who have dug themselves a little grave under the earth,
precisely,
a catacomb to live in their last days. There's the use of sexual longing for the discriminated person comes up in Schindler's List, and I think a way that's a little bit better than, well, not better. I think it's here, but the interesting character here is Penn's character in my mind. I think you're right, Sean, in saying that he's thinly drawn. But I feel like there was a lot of potential here. And I suppose what I would read into the sexual longing is that he, like Schindler's List, he sees the beauty and the humanity in front of them. And the question is rightly asked by Mike, what does this guy want? And apparently what he wanted was a corner office, which was a pathetic goal. Like you allowed your face to they shot your face off and put you in a box to die. That's what that is the end. And if there is any prescription, maybe it's for those who would take the $50,000 check from ICE and sign up to do ghastly work for 20 years because they think that they're going to get affirmed by people like that, and maybe they will get included in that family and elevated to this glass office that's overlooking a highway and feel powerful for a minute. And what a pathetic life that would be for you. And maybe that's all it's being said.
But isn't part of it just wanting it all? Like, he wants perfidia because of the sexual arousal and the power arousal, and that, what's the saying? Some of you you guys might remember. It's like, nothing's about what it is. Everything's about sex except sex, and sex is about power, or something like that. And so that interplay of sex and power, like, he wants it all. He wants perfidia. And even with apologies to our more sensitive listeners, like jungle pussy, like, what kind of name is that?
Okay, well, that is also her name. That is her stage name that she uses, like, that she has chosen. She has owned it. She has been credited in other films as Jungle Pussy. So don't put that on PTA is what I'm saying.
Like, she's trying to say something about how she sees the world seeing her. Right.
Even that's dehumanizing, though, in some sense on that front, though. Yeah.
Well, it's reductive, if nothing else. Right. Like, this is what I am to you. Yeah. I am exotic erotica.
I suppose, isn't it the case that in that first encounter between Penn's character and Perfidia, he can have a conversion? He can have an encounter with somebody who, like, clearly had power over him. He had never experienced this before, and he could have turned a different path, as it were, and yet went a very violent, way with this. It seemed like, again, I want to come back to that. It seems that sexual longing in some ways could expose something actually deeper in us, and that is that we see something perhaps beautiful that we feel like we're supposed to be connected to. And again, his pitch to his daughter is that I have a higher calling than you, which is a rejection of his own humanity. It's a rejection of the black females that he's encountered. And this is exposing, I guess, mirror-wise, it's exposing a long-standing sin of America and what our story looks like. Wouldn't it be great if you could have like a counterexample to that in the film?
Well, we do. And we do in the character of Willa. You know, I think that Perfidia, yes, she is profoundly selfish and broken, and she causes this great, you know, cascading harm, which also means on some level she's human. I think that, you know, there is a multidimensionality to these characters, in that their choices don't happen in a vacuum. They are arising from, you know, these disordered wants, and who among us like can't relate to that? But when we have this, you know, they're on the run, and I think the most beautiful shot in the film, literally brought me to tears seeing it the second time, is we see young Willa in the laundry basket as they're getting ready to go on the run. Smash cut to Willa in the dojo, and, you know, Steely Dan's dirty work, you know, coming in, and it is, I was so taken aback by the moment, because it's the movie itself turning over, saying like this, you know, we can't stop what has happened. And this is not the world that Willa has chosen, but this is the world that she has been chosen into. And we're with her. You know, she is our hero from that point on. You know, Leo in, you know, Bob is a distraction. Like, we are on her journey of coming into herself, divorced from, you know, the choices that, you know, her parents, both birth and you know, by adoption and presence have continued to make. And this is, you know, about, like, I think it's a film about the next generation saying, y'all screwed up, and maybe we will do better, right. And maybe not, but it's ours now. And the unwillingness to let go, like, you know, there's a reason that we've got, you know, over a decade now of 80-year-old presidents. Like, this is, they are not letting go willingly.
It's again the case that, like, I just want a more satisfying answer than get out of the way. Like, I like, and it may be the case that is the best answer. It seems like there's so much potential that is being lost in that kind of answer. So,
but I mean, to go back to here goes.
Yeah, I mean, so like here's the problem with get out of the way. Like, if you look at it like generational wealth, right? That some of us have had generational wealth passed down to us since forever. And so if you look at the country as a kind of inheritance, like, it's really fine to say to some people, like, it's your time now, like, here you go. And then it's a completely different thing to say, like, you got nothing. Like, and so you have to start from scratch. And, like, you have to start from scratch means that in many ways the same mistakes are going to be made over again, that the same tragedies are going to happen over again. You're exploring it new every time. And that's really unsatisfactory in terms of, like, oh, you tried it your way. But at the end, there's just not enough time in the epilogue of this film to say, like, how they're going to do it differently. She's off to Portland to do a thing, and they're just doing the same stuff over.
Which didn't work.
Which didn't work before. And so, you know, you're feeling, Jeff, of feeling unsatisfied at the end with just like, what, is this it? Like, yeah, like, we just kind of keep pumping at and laugh. You know, we know the powers are Christmas adventurers. Like, they are ridiculous. We are pushing the tide back with a teaspoon. We are charging the gates of hell with a glass of ice water. And it makes us feel good, but it's not going to do anything.
Which is the power, I think, of Sensei Sergio. Like, as long as he's got his, you know, few small beers, like, he's like, this is a person who does not get bothered at any point in time in the movie. It's ocean waves. It's ocean waves. And he tells Bob, he's like, no, tranquilo, man. Like, we, and he means, like, his people primarily, but, like, we've been under siege for hundreds of years. Don't get selfish. Like, you're new to this. Like, we've been doing this for a while. So maybe your role, and, you know, to answer your question, but, like, Jeff, it's not moving aside. It's realizing like, hey, there are struggles here that you have had no hand in doing anything meaningful about for decades, centuries, millennia. Like, hey, get on board. That'd be a good start.
But that's the thing. Like, and another thing that drives me crazy, right, in this film, like, if you look, who is the first American to get a COVID shot? It's a black woman. If you just trace back the history of America, how does the Civil War won? Black troops. How's World War II won? Black troops. Like, it is black folks in the service of the greater good for white people who just don't appreciate it. And when they do appreciate it, it's on an individual level. Like, it's his daughter or who he calls as his daughter. And like, that just gets so tired. And everyone who pays no white person, except for only one white person in this film, pays a price. And he's virtually a hitman. And to harken back to a movie we didn't talk about, Thunderbolts, he's a horrible person who did horrible things. He killed a lot of people, and he was killed. Right? And like, that's just sort of the way it is. So I don't know that PTA is trying to be hopeful in this film, but it's definitely not.
And I think he knows, exactly what you've said. I think that the white characters ultimately getting off, relatively scot-free, and that not being the case for the people of color, like that is intentional. Like that, and whether you like, whether you approve of the choice or like the choice or not, like, that's the choice that was made to tell this story. And I think that it speaks loudly, these themes that we're, very much getting around.
I generally have a distaste for the angle that is something to the extent of there is a ton of flawedness in white culture, and when white culture critiques white culture, it does so in a way that looks like this, I find it nauseating. It just is. You're a drunk coming home at 3 a.m. being scolded by your 17-year-old for your bad choices, and you have nothing to contribute to the world at all. This strikes me as defeatist. It strikes me as lazy, which I think is what you're saying. Like, Paul Thomas Anderson himself is being lazy in not giving himself more credibility for the power that he actually has, because he's a world-class filmmaker and can say something if he actually has worthy desires here for change. What does an America that elevates inclusion, reparation, healing, confessing of sins? We have a church scene in which confessions are made, and they're done in a way that does not go in the direction of anything like healing. It seems to me that there's so much potential here, and it's wasted. And I think your point of saying, look, the 80-year-old white males need to get out of the way, I would agree with that. But there is still something to be done, in my view, that is not necessarily like white people need to be the ones leading the charge. I would have loved to have seen something that looked collaborative, that would look as though the voices, of the youth and those who have been marginalized, oppressed, abused, who are showcased here, actually come with wisdom, with courage, with virtue, and showcase there's a better way to be human than these clowns in green outfits in semi-automatic weapons just imposing their will everywhere. How boring and dysfunctional is that? Nobody wants that future.
How about this? Okay, how about, what does Bob do? Like, he's there. He shows up, and he's dad to this girl who seems to be like putting things together pretty well. And he can't take credit certainly for, all of that or even, a weighty share of it. But like, does this film suggest in its closing that one of the most revolutionary acts we can do for this next generation is to continue to show up? To be there, like I want to make sure we call that out. It's it's at the end of the film. It's, you know, it's this letter that it's the only other time we hear from Perfidia, and she's left a letter for Willa to receive at some point in time, and she reads this letter, and it's, you know, it says, and these are the hopes we have ultimately. If we were separated from our children for any reason, are you happy? Do you have love? What will you do when you get older? Will you try to change the world like I did? We failed, but maybe you will not. Maybe you will be the one who puts the world right. And like, you know, you talk about meaninglessness, Jeff. Like, if I was to point, like, theologically, one place that I think this film is very much in conversation with, it would be like the book of Ecclesiastes. Like, I wouldn't say meaningless. I would say vanity. Yes, these are the same stories that we continue to repeat over and over again. And yes, there seems to be this lack of any rhyme or reason to who is elevated and who is punished. Like, I've got this, you know, pulled up here. Ecclesiastes 9:11. Again, I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to the skillful, but time and chance happen to them all. For no one can anticipate one's time, like a fish taken in a cruel net, or birds caught in a snare, so mortals are snared at a time of calamity when it suddenly falls upon them. Like, no one chooses their time of calamity, but we all have one.
As opposed to this, I mean, we can jump into theology at this point. Like, what I'm in favor of is a new creation. I'm in favor of going someplace. I'm in favor of injustice being drowned in a bathtub. I'm in favor of human beings realizing their vast potential and becoming that. I'm not interested in vapor. I'm not interested in things passing away and everything being like
You're born into the wrong world, Jeff.
This is not the story I signed up for. I got a book over here that says it's different than that.
I don't want to do your dirty work.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Mike. Like, and like, there is one way to look at this film, which I mean, I hate saying this, but if it is a masterpiece, it is a masterpiece because it unlocks so many of these questions for people to talk about and wrestle with, which is what art's supposed to do. I find it an unsatisfactory masterpiece. For a lot of the reasons that are articulated, and we won't even really get into.
So is the Mona Lisa.
Have been written. Yeah, well, I would. Yeah, it's true. Like, I don't get that either. They're like so many. This movie will generate think pieces for a month, particularly around the theology of and relationship of black women, and you've got Paul Thomas Anderson, who is the father of black daughters, but who is not married to their black mother, which is a whole other layer of, for those who don't know, his partner is Maya Rudolph, which brings a whole other layer of questions about commitment to black women and his particular commitment to black women.
I mean, Bob says, I can't do her hair right, man. I can't do her hair right. Like, that's confessional.
It is. And like, that's a real thing. And so, but I and I say this, and as I wrote on my Substack, I get people will say this about the new Taylor Swift album as well. Black women's response to this piece of art really needs to be listened to.
And I would call out, can we actually call out, I wrote down her name because I read that today. What is it? Brooke Obie. You'll need to, if you're listening to this, look up an article by Brooke Obie. That's Obie, Black Girl Watching on Substack. She wrote really beautifully on this film and its relation to Assata Shakur, revolutionary, who was certainly in part an inspiration for the character of Perfidia, who recently passed away. Sorry, Sean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that because there are so many there are so many think pieces about this that people need to be paying attention to. And not only that, that Paul Thomas Anderson got what, 150, 170 to make this movie? And there is no expectation that he will make that back, versus when black auteurs, like what we saw with Sinners, which we will eventually get around to talking about, make a film, they have to make their money back. And so the idea, like, black people can't fail, and white men in particular are allowed to fail if enough other white men think that what they're failing at is art. Right? And even on some of my favorite podcasts, like The Big Picture, you know, Amanda Dobbins makes the case, like, what difference does it make to you, like, as a moviegoer? It's not your money. And I want to say, it is my money. It very much is my money. As someone who goes to the theater, I will see his failure at the box office in movie ticket prices. I will see it in the price of a Coke or popcorn or whatever. Like, it actually is my money. The fact that it's amortized across the country doesn't make it any less my money.
Yeah.
But, like, why is PTA given a get out of jail free card for making art that doesn't earn money? And someone like Jordan Peele, or who did Sinners, director of Sinners.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler. Yeah,
who has made, I mean, literally billions
$1 billion movies. Yeah.
Right.
So Ryan Coogler makes Sinners, and they're like, "Oh, you need to make money back." Well, he did freaking Black Panther, which made $1 billion. He's got to make his money back, but Paul Thomas Anderson doesn't have to make his money back. Like, and that bothers me.
Yeah, my response is no less cynical. But I'll point to, you know, this film, you know, Warner Brothers film, you know, big studio film,
their last film of the year,
co-financed by the, you know, Domain Entertainment, this, you know, hedge fund, whatever, out of Atlanta. But these folks, this is Warner Brothers' year. Sinners, the Minecraft movie, Final Destination: Bloodlines made a huge amount of money. The Naked Gun, Weapons, Superman, The Conjuring: Last Rites, and now One Battle After Another. They've had a tremendous year, both box office commercially and critically. And, you know, to your point, Sean, like, this actually doesn't have to make money in the same way, because it is existing as, you know, the awards shingle in their portfolio. Like, if you want to have a conversation, I think the more interesting read there is, like, well, this is a revolutionary film about revolutionaries that's being, you know, funded by, you know, these hedge fund guys in, you know, connection with, you know, these companies that are being slowly eaten up and consolidated. Like, does that speak against, you know, somewhat counter to the revolutionary and, you know, impetus of,
but that's Bob.
Right.
That's my issue with the movie. It's white people wanting the credit for being part of the revolution without having to risk anything for the revolution. Right? Like, what they want to be able to say is, like, we made One Battle After Another. Aren't we sophisticated and smart? But they made One Battle After Another off the bucks of Sinners. And they're going to go to Ryan Coogler even the next time. Well, maybe not Ryan Coogler, maybe the next time, because he got such a sweet deal for Sinners. And say, like, you have to make money so that we can feel good about making this art that makes us feel good about making art. And Paul Thomas Anderson continues to build his empire on the backs of black people. Like, that's the problem. Like, he can make his movies because Ryan Coogler made a ton of money. And so the studio doesn't need his movie to make money, because Coogler's movie made money. But when they sit down with Ryan Coogler, they're going to say, you have to make money. It is slavery by another name. You fund our production.
I think you're exposing exactly what I have a problem with. Is you brought up generational wealth earlier. If it's the case that one of the races commands, 90% of the wealth, there needs to be solutions for equity in moving things forward for exactly the reasons that you're stating. What does it look like foundationally and systemically to move the culture in such a way that power is not consolidated in the hands of those who are bunkered down underneath the earth and don't care about the rest of humanity, and actually would prefer to imprison people behind, fencing under a highway.
And optimistically, hopefully, maybe Sinners is a meaningful step in that direction. Maybe, handing over the reins to Willa at the end of this film is symbolic in a same hopeful vein.
But it's I don't feel like he's taking any responsibility, and that I think is the point. When you're doing the background of this man, the director, if he's just saying, "Look, you go fight the battles, but make sure you don't get hurt." Lazy. The lack of virtue and human excellence in human beings of this sort should disgust us. You're not even embracing your power, your ability to cause meaningful change. In essence, if you're saying, like, it goes deeper into the, how the movie industry is itself functioning presently, that would be a fantastic place to start. Let's have a higher calling as a studio.
That's what we're here for.
Come on.
But so I want to ask you this, Mike, because you like the movie much better than me or Jeff. And I do want to say, I think it's a good movie. The people who are glazing this movie as the best movie of the last 10 years, that is absolutely ridiculous to me. That is just profoundly ridiculous.
Well, before we move into the... okay, sorry, finish your question.
Well, I forgot it now because I get so lost in my own cul-de-sac of how is this movie getting the applause that it is, because I will tell you, Killers of the Flower Moon is better than this movie. Oppenheimer's better than this movie. There have been plenty of movies in the last 10 years that are better than this movie, just objectively. Even though the car chase scene at the end is really fun and good and unique.
Well, there's no such thing as objectively when we're talking about it.
And that's an objective claim, my friends.
As Jeff, as the philosopher, is telling me that my claim is objective. Like, those are just better movies than this movie. And this is a 10-year movie, which, all of the film bros on Twitter are going to just ride on this movie so hard from now until Oscars. And then in 10 years, they're going to look back and go like, it wasn't that great. Like this is that movie. And I would say get lost in the PTA of it all. And that they are so enamored with Paul Thomas Anderson that it had to be great. That they're going to lose sight that it's good, but not great.
To which my response would be, I think it is great. And I think it's great for all of the reasons that, it has led us into a very lively discussion. Whether or not it's, better, whatever. I don't care. But I did pull up.
It's good because it's not better than Oppenheimer or Killers of the Flower Moon.
So I pulled up, and I know you got to go. If you can give us a couple minutes, because I want to get your streaming recommendations there, Sean. I pulled up, the 50 top rated movies of the decade on Metacritic. So this is a critical consensus that generally is a little harder to kind of break those higher numbers than something like a Rotten Tomatoes. But from 2016 present day, so past 10 years, One Battle After Another currently ranked 14th, which I think is probably a little high. But the movies above it: Moonlight, Parasite, Roma, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, After Sun, Manchester by the Sea. Those ranked, just behind it: Carol, Dunkirk, The Irishman, Past Lives, Marriage Story, Lady Bird, La La Land, Uncut Gems, Tar, The Florida Project, which might be my number one of the past decade, actually. Zone of Interest. These are all great and worthy and interesting, rich texts cinematically. Like, I think that's where this conversation ultimately, like, glazing it, whatever, gas we're giving this film or not, like, it is a film that is worth reckoning with, like, on these serious thematic levels of actually seeking out those perspectives, those that we're getting at, what Black women are writing about this film is incredibly important. Those perspectives are, crucial for a meaningful dialogue where this becomes more than a passive exercise.
What was the claim that Black women? What were they saying about the film?
Well, I mean, it's pretty broad and varied, Jeff. But most of them are writing about how Black women's bodies are treated, and Black women in the service of white men. Both Leonardo DiCaprio's Bob and Sean Penn's Lockjaw, and that they are so thinly drawn. And Van Lathan makes this great argument about revolutionary Black women are the opposite of what Pería is in this movie. That revolutionary Black women are very much concerned about their children. That's what makes them revolutionary. And in this film, she abandons her child because she must put herself first.
Yeah.
And I find that an interesting argument. Obviously, there's no one type of anything in the world. So there is some revolutionary Black woman out there who does not give a crap about her children, right? It's not a question about uniqueness necessarily, but I found those really interesting, that they were like, wait a second, like, she's the driver of the action, and yet she is a caricature. She is a white man's fantasy of what Black women are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My last word on this, it won't surprise you, is just like, I contrasted it earlier, but with a movie like Schindler's List that is showcasing a place, it's showcasing a place for those who have resources and what heroism looks like in terms of seeing systemic change. It doesn't take away from the power of the Jews in that movie. There's all sorts of heroic Jews in Schindler's List. And maybe this is just me today, 2025, a huge failure of progressives is that they haven't carved out spaces where white men can be strong on behalf of others and elevate those in ways that seem meaningful. That's not in their vocabulary language. It feels like it's counterproductive, as though they're stealing from someone else. But like, I suppose as somebody who wants to see more justice done and is clearly opposed to the sort of buffoonery that we see going on with the $75 billion invested in ICE, I want to see a counter movement. And this seemed like a perfect place to tell that story. And it's a story that our culture needs. So I suppose for aspiring filmmakers, like let's get that on paper. So that was my take.
I would say that the
do better, Paul Thomas Anderson.
And my closing word would be: the revolution is not about me. The revolution is not about you. The revolution is about all of us, and especially all these American girls and boys raised on, I would say, broken promises.
It's good. What's your recommendation there, Mike?
Yeah, so hey, we wanted to do a new little mini segment to close things out, kind of what to watch right now. We know that it's hard to get to the theater with any regularity, but we know we've got a wealth of streaming options. So we both all wanted to just throw out a couple. I will go first real quick. And these are, I think, thematically in line. First, Adolescence on Netflix. Not necessarily a movie specifically, but it's 4 hours beginning to end, so I'm just calling it a movie. 4 episodes, all are told in a single shot. The virtuosity of the filmmaking is stunning, but it is very much in conversation with this in terms of this is another take on the pressures facing our adolescents in this time and place. It is a hard watch, but it is, I would say, extremely hopeful and also tragic. Second, it's on Hulu. Death of Stalin, 2017. Armando Iannucci, creator of Veep, very much in the same vein. And if you're looking for a kind of political satire that pokes a lot of fun at our it mirrors our present moment, in which you've got these sycophantic hangers-on to a dying empire as Joseph Stalin has punched his ticket. And then the other would be The Phoenician Scheme, streaming on Peacock, starring Sensei Sergio, Benicio del Toro. Also another movie about a daughter and a questionably reliable father figure. But Wes Anderson's latest is terrific. It's one I actually need to revisit. I was a little softer on it, but I think as Sean says, Wes always grows on you.
Yeah. Phoenician Scheme, like all Wes Anderson movies, like you haven't seen it until you've seen it twice. So a couple of mine, I would say, if you just want a fun night, Point Break is now streaming, and it is not a great film, but it is,
the original or the new one?
The original, Keanu Reeves.
Point Break is fantastic.
Like it's just. It's silly and it's fun and it's what a Friday night movie is for with the family, or if you've got a little bit older kids. But what I really have enjoyed recently is, as I prepared for One Battle After Another, Punch Drunk Love is on Criterion Channel for those of you who would be interested in that, to see that Paul Thomas Anderson often has no point. And also that Phantom Thread on Netflix, which you will end when the credits roll on that. You might be very much like my wife and go like, "What?" But like it kind of seeps into your skin over the next couple of days. But what has been taking a lot of my attention recently has been Alien Earth on Hulu, Disney Plus. If you like Alien, that kind of genre movie,
terrifying.
The series has its problems. Like, it is not perfect, but episode 5 of Alien Earth is one of the better Alien movies that's ever been made.
Ooh.
So, and you can just drop into episode 5 and say, I'm going to watch an Alien movie, and it's an hour and 10-minute movie. And it is so fun. And so, like a lot of genre films, don't ask too many questions. It is what it is. Have fun. Knock yourself out.
Jeff?
Aside from rewatching the Broncos-Eagles game, which everybody should do, I went back and did rewatch Schindler's List. That's why it's on my brain, and just love the hell out of it and really appreciate it far more than I did when I was in high school. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie, and really spoke. The first third of the movie has so much to say to present day America, unfortunately. Another great film that I'm going through again for like the third time is Rick Burns' New York, which is a documentary on the city, and it talks about race in America in a profound way through the angle of the history of New York, from Hudson coming into the bay and up the river to 9/11 and its aftermath. And just truly, it's really, really impressive. And just for fun, I've said it a handful of times, but Dexter, I really like Dexter, and Dexter Resurrection was high quality Dexter, top 2 seasons for me. And so if you well worth just jumping into it, even if you haven't seen any of the other.
Yeah, Dexter really living into that higher virtue of yours there, Jeff.
Eliminating serial killers is. Sometimes you're sick. You need to spend your energies someplace. Take it out on serial killers.
We're glad you're feeling better, Jeff. Coming up, Sinners, we promise.
That's right. Next time.
Sinners.
All right.
A movie made by an auteur that will actually make money. So.
He's Movie Mike Yager. Sean Palmer, I'm Jeff Cook. We'll see you next time.